Thank goodness it's Friday and we can drop all pretense of caring about work and just watch some sport. This is the week that was. I'm Giulietta Talevi, my co-host is Simon Brown, and joining us in their pyjama bottoms from their living rooms or offices are Sasson Securities' David Shapiro and Vestact's Bright Khumalo. Jen, sorry we had to do it this way this week, but it's been quite an interesting week on the markets, Bright, especially with the US inflation figures.
Yes, I mean, initially the market surges about, 1% or so. And then sometime after lunchtime, everyone says, no, there's supposed to be a swap of a trade here. The rest of the 400 companies in the S&P 500 should go up and then sell tech, big tech, or the top 100, which is unfair in my opinion, because, as you've seen, I'm sure you've seen this tweet that said basically inflation is up, buy QQQ. Inflation is down, buy QQQ. Inflation is not hot. It's it's sort of moderate. Buy QQQ. What happened to that trade?
But David, what happened to that trade? I mean, the truth is the Nasdaq and the S&P are like one day off their highs. I was looking at global markets. I mean, everything that matters, which means no France, no UK, but all the other markets are at highs. I mean, and even we're like a whisper away. I mean, we can't be complaining.
Yeah, we get grumpy if the market goes down. We don't like to lose. We value our portfolios on a minute-to-minute basis, and if they retreat slightly and that we get very angry and say, those stupid traders, what do they know, switching into the Russell 2000, which is a grocery store in Tennessee or something like that. I don't know what makes up the Russell 2000. So it'll come back. I mean, it's just a knee-jerk reaction, I think. But I think the good news is that inflation is down, and finally, we're going to go into a period lower interest rates and higher growth. So just hang on to your trades. But I like what Brad said. It sums up tech. They aren't perturbed by what's happening.
Yeah, just buy QQQ. Nice and simple. We can all go home. Also making news this week, Le Pen is not mightier than the left. Ireland must have been more pissed off than we thought after last week's rugby. Pfizer wins on the weighs once in rather on the weight loss wonder drug. New York City gets itself some wheelie bins. The EFF's VBS plunder problem is back in focus, and someone else has been raiding the public works kitty. We are shocked. Pick and Pay knows its rights. BHP Group has a big nickel problem, and Sabanya's latest SA company to get hacked. But first, the game, says Joe, is still not up. He's in it to win it, if only everyone else thought so too.
I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be Vice President, but I think she was not qualified to be President. So let's start there. Number one. The fact is that the consideration is that I think I'm the most qualified person to run for president. I beat him once, and I will beat him again.
I mean, he called Kamala Harris Vice President Trump.
He called Zelensky Putin.
Oh,
but he didn't even backtrack.
No.
Do you see that? He carried on. He didn't, once he said Vice President Trump, he didn't go, oh, sorry, he didn't apologize. He just carried on.
I know we spoke about this last week, but last week we were thinking, okay, maybe he's going to resign or pull out of the race, rather. And actually, I've got to read a comment from it was a Democratic member of the House of Representatives, I think a guy called Jim Himes from the FT, and he said, one of the really kind of sick aspects of this moment is that we're watching every speech, every rally, every debate and saying, how did he do today? And that's just not the way to think about the presidency of the United States.
Or take the picture of Trump, who's not doing a hell of a lot better.
It's remarkable stubbornness and intransigence. Brad, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys are saying, but the most important news for us South Africans is Sibanye getting hacked. Because, I mean, Joe Biden and all this stuff, it's all up in the air for us South Africans. But yeah, when it comes to these types of hacks, I'm always very skeptical, and because, I'm sure Simon Brown knows this, that these hackers actually work as entities. Like, there's a boss, there's this guy who does this, there's an attacker, there's a guy specializing in this, and it's crazy. And
I'll pick up on it, yeah.
They even have targets. For example, Sibanye probably fell into we only hack companies that have, for example, a minimum of $30 million in revenues. Otherwise, there's no point of executing this malware. So it's not, the first listed company that's going to be hacked, and it's definitely not the last. As I've said many times on this show, that this is the new form of robbery. Thugs are on the internet now because it's easier to hide behind the onion router than actually to pull out a gun and try to find you on a corner somewhere or in the park. And, the stakes are much higher, and there's more income to be made by being a thug online, than elsewhere. But online, it's not really, easy to actually hide your tracks. So we always find them, always find these guys, and the FBI always actually gets to where they stay and lock them up. So I hope these guys at Sibanye are working with the FBI already.
Problem is most of these hackers then sit in Russia, and Putin's like will protect them. David, bringing it back to Joe Biden, the election is still 4 months away. The UK did an election in 6 weeks. France did an election in 1 week, for goodness sake. Surely there's time to get somebody else, and dare I be so brave as to say anybody else, to stand against Trump. I mean, I would do it, except I'm busy that weekend.
It's going to happen. I promise you it's going to happen. He's not going to last the distance. There's just too much pressure against him. And when it comes to the convention and it comes to other rallies, I think that, someone will be pragmatic and he will stand down. I don't know why he's hanging on. The problem is that who comes in afterwards? I suppose anybody's better than Joe Biden. It does seem to be Kamala at the moment, but and she's developing a bit of personality along the way. But I mean, I don't know if she's going to be any kind of competition for Trump, who's just sitting and watching in absolute amazement as the Democratic Party just implodes from within. Yeah. So get used to it, Mr. Trump. We're going to have President Harris. What are we going to have? President, I don't know.
We could have President Putin. You never know if it's Joe Biden. Actually, there are lots of Democratic candidates, so they do need to get their act together.
I'm just mocking Biden, saying, he doesn't even know who's standing. So anyway.
Yeah, someone else said his unscripted appearances instill terror in just about everyone I've talked to. Anyway, back home, the VBS plunderers are going down, and the witness statement of its kingpin, who has now pleaded guilty, is one big eye-opener. Namely, that gratifications were paid to the leadership of the EFF, Julius Malema and Floyd Shivambu, while National Treasury DG Dondo Bokajane took a R1 million payment in exchange for not forcing municipalities to withdraw investments at the bank. What do you guys think about whether or not this might be the nail in the coffin of the EFF leadership? Because anywhere else in the world, you'd think it should be.
Except America.
They Teflon. It just rubs off. And they're able to talk themselves out of it, which is quite incredible. And we accept it as well. Nothing's ever done. No one even gets disgusted by what's happening. We just carry on, and they carry on rallying, and so we bumble forward. We're just hoping that somehow this new government has got a little more teeth to actually stop this kind of conduct. But, that those people who are supposedly politicians, who are supposedly trying to create the moral values for this country, just act that way is also something we just shake our heads. And we've got even worse problems at home when it comes to actually understanding this.
Well, staying at home and some of those problems, John Schloppe's appointment makes an absolute mockery of our attempt to try and have good leaders, a bit like having a debarred doctor named a Surgeon General. So much for our GNU Dawn. So, I mean, Bright, certainly the rules don't prevent Dr. Schloppe from being on the JSC, the Judicial Services Commission, but ethics should, seeing as he was the first Democratic judge to ever be disbarred.
Man, this is South Africa. It's there's a quote for this, but anyways, that the petty crooks actually, what's the saying? They basically get hired to higher positions, and petty crooks actually those are the ones that are actually going into jail. I hate the South African political landscape. It's complex. No one takes anyone seriously, and memories are very short. It's very sad. I don't know. Ethics committee from someone that was disbarred by their
impeached.
own impeached. Yeah, that's a good word. I don't know, man. Don't we have enough talent to actually fill in these positions with people with great morals and actually great operational skills and knowing what they do?
Maybe that is your finger.
I'm pretty sure these people are not even good at their jobs.
But why is he put there in the first place? Why is he nominated? Who nominates him? You know, have they got no moral judgment at all? Have they got no moral compass?
MK?
That's the problem.
Yeah, but, you know, MK could have been overruled. And where were the smaller parties like Rise Mzansi and Build One South Africa?
Yeah, but where was the GNU?
Yeah, it's everybody protects their own ground. Everyone's scared to talk up in case it costs them some position or costs them money. No, you know, if you want to move forward, and I think this is what the whole election was about, you've got to stop this. You know, we've got to stop this these ridiculous appointments. I mean, it's the same thing as the new Minister of Defense. I mean, it's just crazy that...
there is no lack of talent in this country. So I don't understand why we keep doing the same thing and not learning from our mistakes.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, as it's election year, the French right has not prevailed after all, but the madder aspects of the left seem to have done. Good luck, les bleus. Yes, we had the French. So this time last week, we were talking about whether or not Marine Le Pen would do her thing, but she actually, they didn't do very well. So it's a gathering of the left. And they're talking about the most fractured French government since the Second World War.
Yeah, since de Gaulle.
No, the French have always been like that, Giulietta. You just got to read your history. You know, you are of German and Italian origin and English. Oh, sorry, you're married to a German, but I mean the French, you know.
No, I can't remember if it was de Gaulle or if it was, I think it was de Gaulle who said, how can you run a country where there are more than 400 types of cheese? I think he was... I think there is I should have actually looked up that expression. Also, the Italians said, you know, it's not impossible to run Italy. It's useless. So it's inutile. But France will probably carry on trucking.
Yeah, France will be fun, and we will have
the Olympics
types of cheese and the Olympics, and we need the cheese. After the break, rights issues, cybercrime, and wedding celebrations worth our GDP.